On August 28, 2010, a new chapter of history was written at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children of all races, cultures, and creeds came together from all over this country and the world to peacefully lend their prayers, their voices, their unwavering support for restoration of honor in America. They gave thanks to real American heroes and paid tribute to a sacred plot of ground so prominent in our country's history.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
And to the men and women whose footsteps left indelible impressions in the very soil where they now stood.
My city, Shreveport, Louisiana, I can tell you genuinely there were at least 100 people who said, I wish I was going with you.
It's God. That's what we're trying to get back to. We all have a strong belief.
I didn't want to do this without him. I didn't want to do this without my wife.
Honor, I mean, what better thing to gather for us?
I am very happy to see so many patriots here on the front line standing up for their country.
We just want them to get what was put into us years and years ago.
Where are you guys coming from?
Indiana.
South Bend.
Lexington, Kentucky.
From North Dakota.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oklahoma.
Philadelphia.
City of Liberty, Philly.
USA! USA! USA!
It's not about being against anything or anybody. My husband and I are here because we want to stand for something.
He brings you an effort to restore honor in America. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Beck. Hello, America!
My first reaction was that it was going to be the typical Glenn thing where he has this big idea and then 2 days later has a different big idea, so the first big idea gets canceled.
Here we go again.
The initial reaction was, you're out of your mind.
Not good.
I did not think that it would ever happen.
It's just like, there's no way.
You don't react to the early Glenn ideas.
No.
Because that's just a waste of time.
He will come to us sometimes and say, we need to go to space. We need to, as a company, build a rocket ship large enough to hold all 40 employees, and we need to launch it into space. And it needs to orbit the Earth 38 times and return to Earth and land in the desert in California. Yeah. We'll be like, really? Yeah, get started on that, make that happen, just do it. And then we'll start on it, and then like 3 days later it'll be, no, we're not going to the moon. I think we need to sail around the planet.
And everyone who works here has been the idiot that has a half-built spaceship in their backyard.
I've got 3.
Like, so I can stick them up on the board and say,
but this time was different. As the weeks and then months passed, the big idea didn't go away. In fact, it just kept getting bigger.
You know, I think with Glenn, you know, it's just, you get so used to him raising the bar continually that...
And so it was all pink and purple?
You're never really thrown by it. You just say, okay, let's do it.
But not everyone was convinced.
I really felt that this time, I'm not going to be able to turn this corner.
We went to our houses of worship and we said, God help us.
The big idea was born at Seattle's Safeco Field during a highly controversial speaking engagement. The trip back home had been a difficult one. There were protests when he was awarded the key to his childhood hometown of Mount Vernon, Washington, and more of the same in Seattle prior to the Safeco event.
I was on a plane going to Seattle, and I wrote in my diary in the days that I still kept a diary, but I wrote in my diary I haven't told anybody this before, a farewell to my children. Because I was going out to an event in Seattle where the death threats were very high. And I was flying out there and I thought, this may be it. And what is it I want to say to my children? And what is it I want to say to my wife? And so I wrote it in my diary and I handed it to Joe. And I didn't explain, I just closed up my diary and put a rubber band around it. And I just said, if something happens, just give this to my family. And it was a really soul-searching 6-hour flight. And then I walked out, it was at the Seattle Safeco Field. And I walked out and it was the most humbling experience because somebody was on stage. And when I walked out onto the field amidst all these people, people turned and stood and applauded. And it was, I think it was 10,000 people. And I just couldn't fathom that. It just was so humbling. And I could feel the energy when I got up and gave the speech. I could feel the energy. And I could see how these people had come together. You know, in Seattle, they had to pass the protesters and all of the other stuff. And they came together, and it meant something. And obviously, I survived the weekend. And I was on the plane back home, and I said to Joe, we have to do that. That's where the American Revival came from. So we have to do that. The idea of the Lincoln Memorial wasn't far behind, because I said we should do these American revivals and put them back to back and then lead to one final in Washington. And I think Joe had said, like a Tea Party thing, and I said, no, let's use the Lincoln Memorial as the backdrop, because no one trusts the Capitol. That's yelling at a building. Instead, we should have Lincoln behind, because that's sending the message to the people. The building's never going to get the message. Politicians are never going to get the message. People need to get the message that you can be great. You can do great things. You can be the next Abraham Lincoln.
But I want you to start right here. I want you to look each other in the eye. I want you to dig down deep inside, and I want you to say, the science is not settled. We will not sit down. We will not shut up. We will stand.
I remember standing on the stage at the Villages, and we were surrounded by 25,000 people, and I made the announcement.
He stood there and he announced the plan, which was that Glenn was going to go out there and mobilize a political force, that we were going to register voters, we were going to educate voters, we were going to put voters in the streets.
I think it was, two can play this game.
And the crowd responded to that, just cheering and yelling and very excited.
And as I said those words, I just broke out in a cold sweat.
I remember him coming off the stage, and it was so loud, he grabbed me by the lapels.
Well, we're screaming at each other because we're surrounded by people in the round. And I said, I don't know how we're wrong, but we're wrong.
And I was just stunned. We got back on the bus, and said, what do you mean we're wrong? And he said, this message just isn't right. It's not the right message.
We're supposed to be better than that.
Wrong message or not, the cat was out of the bag. The plan for 8/28 in the nation's capital was widely reported in the press. Accounts ranged from skeptical to conspiratorial. All assumed, as had been the original intent, it would be purely political.
He was very stressed out about that because he felt compelled to do the event, thought it was one thing. Turns out that then he didn't feel right about that at all, and then was left with, I don't know what it is, for quite a while. We kept saying we're 2% off or 5% off, and really we're more like 50 or 100% off because it wasn't political at all.
There comes a point in the process with Glenn when he converts from this sort of general idea to something he can actually see. He can see it happening.
The epiphany came around Christmas. It was the realization that the answer would not be found in politics at all, that in fact there was only one possible solution to the crisis in America.
Faith in God, understanding who He is. Hope, tell the truth, be honest, do the right thing. And charity, serve God, serve your fellow man. The faith, hope, and charity really came to me over the holidays when I designed those paintings and painted them. I painted them and I kind of put them together and went, oh my gosh, wait a minute, that's it. Those are the missing pieces.
With the new year, faith, hope, and charity became the cornerstone, the underpinning of not only the Restoring Honor Rally planning, but it became the foundation for the Glenn Beck program on both TV and radio.
Last year, I said this was going to be historic. I told the staff, this is historic.
And when you're out there, you see over the tops of these things anyway.
He's a brilliant person. He's assembled a great team around him who've always been able to execute on his vision. But I really felt that this time, I'm not going to be able to turn this corner. And a few months ago, we were down in Washington, D.C., and Glenn stopped by the Lincoln Memorial site. And I think it hit him too a little bit as to, what have I done? I used to work in Washington, D.C., and I knew the vastness of this area. I didn't think we'd ever fill it.
Initially, I think the concept was like, okay, something exciting, something new. And then the more we started getting into and started working with all the different agencies and the different contractors, I realized what a big feat this was. And the gravity and the massiveness of the project was just like, there's no way. I mean, this is a crazy, crazy idea.
I believe we do, but if not, let's get one.
As if the enormous challenge of staging the event wasn't enough. As the calendar raced closer to the 8/28 date, the attacks from critics and the press intensified.
Reverend Glenn Beck, who's going to be leading this, I don't know what.
They are planning, I guess you could say, an invasion of the nation's capital this weekend.
The beckoning is coming.
There were threats, counter rallies planned, new concerns, new obstacles.
We're getting a lot of mail from people saying, Glenn, you've asked to bring our families. Yes, I have. You're going to have to decide. I haven't seen a budget in a while, but I believe the biggest expense on 8/28, and it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, is security. This is the nation's capital. I will tell you that the next meeting we have, just because it's scheduled this way, is with Secret Service. The best and the brightest will be there. We are unfortunately having to live in a world where we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on security. Should you be there? That's your call. I will just ask that you, again, discover what you truly believe. Find out why you believe it. Find out what your place is in all of this. What is your mission? What is your duty? What is your honor? The things you're honored to do.
From day one, the goal had been to raise enough money to cover the expenses and award the Special Operations Warrior Foundation a sizable donation with remaining funds. An unforgiving economy made the goal difficult, and a last-minute demand from the Park Service for an additional $500,000 for even more security put the plan in jeopardy.
Got to a certain point on our fundraising and just felt that we can't turn the corner anymore, that we were about $600,000 shy of where I thought we needed to be. And I remember walking into Glenn's office and saying, you know, things are going well, but we're still short. And Glenn said, Joe, if we're doing the things that God wants us to do, if we're doing the things that we think are right, then we can call on the powers of heaven. We can call down His help. And he said a prayer. And that was a turning point in the fundraising. We literally more than doubled the amount of money after that point in time.
There were a few moments then, it was like the weekend before, where I was like, this is going to be a disaster. This is not just a small disaster, but a disaster on a national scale. And then probably about Wednesday, prior to the event, things started slowly coming into place.
Despite the months of planning and dozens of meetings, as Team Beck entered the week before the event, the final program details were still being worked out in Glenn's head. And to make things even more interesting, just 4 weeks before 8/28, Glenn decided to add a second event to the weekend, a gathering at the Kennedy Center on 8/27, funded entirely by Glenn and his wife Tanya.
It went from, we're going to do this small little thing, to an event that probably was the biggest stage thing we ever did, in that we had, I think, about 70 performers on stage. And it came together in 30 days, but it really came together in the last week.
That was something that Tanya and I decided to do.
Tonight, pastors, priests, rabbis, tonight and tomorrow is two things. Your wake-up call, a country calls you to service. And two, it is to give you backbone and spine, and to know that you are not alone. The people are begging for right and wrong.
It was kind of to prepare ourselves and some members of the audience, but mainly I think there were about 1,900 preachers there. It was mainly to prepare them for what is coming and what they need to do. They need to see that you can talk about real principles. You can talk about things that happen in life without talking about politics. And you've got to start standing for something.
But the combination of two events, without a definitive plan in place for either, caused an already frazzled event staff, now holed up in a Washington, D.C. hotel, to panic.
It really was chaos from the moment we got to Washington.
How you doing, buddy? I'm good, man. I'll see you later on.
The crew reached out to company president Chris Balfe in New York for help.
I think it was on Monday night, the week before the rally, Chris had to come in and kind of broker for everybody, because everybody was going to him and saying, we don't get it. I'm so busy, I don't have time to download, every little detail. And so he came in with all the staff, and we sat in this round room, everybody around, and he said, okay, Glenn, nobody gets it. They don't understand the program at all. And I said, then let me take you through step by step. And everybody just started taking notes. And I laid out the entire program from start to finish. And that was the first time that he got it. He went, that's going to be good. That was the Monday before.
Well, first of all, when I knew the meeting started on, when the meeting that was going to explain the entire thing, I found out it was on the Monday before, I realized it was amazing, because that was really early for Glenn. Usually it's the day before. The fact that we had 5 full days of lead time to put the entire event together was fantastic. We had no speech put together for Glenn yet. We had, no real language, turned in from any of the speakers there. Most people would like to have more than a foundation the one Monday before you're moving in. You'd like the house to be built, maybe have some plumbing, some electricity, maybe even have the cable turned on. I don't know, it's crazy. But with Glenn, you have the basic foundation, and then you put the pieces in the last minute. He likes that sort of the decorating of the house to kind of be a spontaneous event that you feel.
It's got to be a good experience for them.
I've never experienced a more hectic week in my life. Just running around, doing everything that needed to be done. It felt like everything that we had worked for the whole year leading up to 828, it was all resting on this 1 week.
People from all over America had already begun to stream into the nation's capital and were making their way to the Lincoln Memorial. By Thursday night, a long line of people had also formed at the Kennedy Center in Washington, all hoping to get one of the few remaining tickets to Friday's America's Divine Destiny event. At approximately 9 p.m., they got an unexpected visit from an unlikely pizza delivery boy.
Are you the first in line?
Yes, sir. Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
You say hi to my wife, Rebecca.
Yeah. Hi, Rebecca.
My sisters who are from the West, and they don't, my family's not impressed by me. And they decided to come out 2 weeks ago, and they were like, so you're doing this thing in Washington or something? But they were standing watching, and they commented last night that it's just a different connection.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Kid Grove, Colorado.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And it's like we know each other. It's like we're friends or family. It's different. There's no hate there. No hate. It's real love.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow night.
It's Friday, August 27th. It's about 2:30 in the morning. Just finishing packing a few things. Got my clothes, got my sunscreen, and got my 1611 King James Bible, and I'm ready for the 828 Restoring Honor Rally.
Oh, you got two, okay. This is it right here. You're just gonna throw your clothes in here, aren't you? Off.
That's what I always do. I always throw my clothes in wherever I go. Even the cat knows we're doing the right thing going to Washington, D.C., don't you think?
Let's put everything we need to take in the back.
Friday morning, 8:27. Planes, trains, automobiles, and hundreds of buses are en route to the nation's capital, bringing hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children, all answering the call to restore America.
I worked in Washington when I was 18, and I used to come here, and at the time they used to wash the monument down with power hoses in the morning. I got to know the guy pretty well, and I would sit right where we sat this morning, and then a few years later I met my two oldest girls' mom, and I proposed to her right there at sunset. So I wanted to bring the kids this morning, and it's like a day hasn't gone by since I was 18 sitting there.
We're a little more than 24 hours away. What are you feeling?
I don't know. Responsibility. Responsibility. That and the place and time. But so many things that people said couldn't happen, wouldn't happen, and haven't been done for so long, are about to happen. And I have the responsibility as an individual to get it right. Alveda King is joining me, and she said yesterday she hasn't felt this since the 60s, and she hasn't felt the hatred since the 60s.
Glenn Beck and his band of low information voters and Tea Party faithfuls.
Swastika signs, I think, at the rally aren't going to play well. He thinks someone, and we assume, he said the Spirit, we're assuming it's the Almighty is there, is screaming at him. Is he okay?
There are so many people that are, who have just turned us into monsters, and I was reading all the papers from the 60s and what people said, and they're not much different. So I don't know what tomorrow brings, you know? So here we are in Washington, D.C., and I don't even know the date today. What is the date, Joe? 22nd. On August 28th, we're going to be here, and I'm just walking the reflecting pool. It is much larger than I remembered it. After it was too late to back out, I came here, and I stood at that place and then here, and both times I was overwhelmed with the thought of, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Would have never done it. Because you have to be that size. And that's the point on tomorrow is, people aren't that size. Nobody's that size. He wasn't that size.
How many times have you envisioned opening your eyes and looking out over several 100,000 people?
Try not to. Try not to. I don't know what it's going to be like. I mean, I'm a pretty emotional guy. And I just said to the guys, I don't think I should have any water now for the next 24 hours. I should dehydrate as much as I can.
You guys for prayer here? Yeah, absolutely.
This is a sacred space. I thought of this last night. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the Vietnam vets, the greatest generation, the Korean generation, and at the first flight of stairs, Martin Luther King. This is sacred space, and if people will just understand that, it'll be a remarkable day.
We just crossed the line into Virginia, so we are over halfway there. ETA is about 4 o'clock. We're going to be going into D.C. Still running on adrenaline. It's been a wild road.
We made it in D.C. We just landed at Ronald Reagan National Airport, and we're on our way to the hotel. We've got a couple of big stops to make tonight.
From Washington, D.C., 25 hours away now from restoring honor. What a wild 24 hours this has been since last we met. Things here in Washington are getting quite bizarre and quite intense. And intense in a good way. Bizarre in a just, I don't even know how to explain it. It's weird. History is going to be made this weekend in Washington. We've been telling you that we don't know how many people are coming. We have built it, and I think the area that we have jumbotrons and sound in is, if it fills in, is between 450 and 500,000. We've been expecting, I don't even know, maybe 100,000. Excuse us while we do a sound check so we can kind of get used to what's going to happen tomorrow. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to
read a little bit that's carved on the wall in there. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they fought here and thus far so nobly advanced.
Shortly before 2 p.m., Glenn, Stu Burgier, Pat Gray, and Joe Carey meet at the Willard Hotel for the last formal brainstorming and rehearsal session for Glenn's 828 keynote speech.
Who wants to hear the speech?
I do.
I would like to hear the speech.
Who wants to come?
Okay, then what you should do is come tomorrow. The nation needs healing. That's what it needs. And we need to stop concentrating on the scars in life. Fear doesn't do anything. Hope does. Real hope, truth, hope that is in truth. Faith wakes us up. Faith is the truth of God. Charity keeps us awake by serving other people. Then I go to,
we're in the hotel room, just bringing up points, shooting them down, approving them, and all that stuff sort of marinates inside of Glenn. You know what I mean? And he sits there and takes it all in and lets it sit there for a few days.
And I just come out and just say,
pretty much when he got down on the floor, it was like, okay, everybody else be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, okay, you don't want any input now? No, it's quiet time. I gotta think. And then it was like, okay, should we leave? And then
yeah, he was pretty much yes.
Yeah, we all sort of left, and he finished the speech on his own at that point. So that's kind of what it was like. It was like Glenn laying on the floor, paper spread out, alone in the room.
He lays down on the floor like a kid with a coloring book and maps the thing out. And, as crazy as that process is, it actually does seem to work somehow.
Before excusing his speechwriting team, Glenn appoints Mercury Radio Arts intern John Miller to be the keeper of one of the company's most valuable possessions, Binky.
Binky is the notebook which contained all of the notes that Glenn used for his speech on 828. But it's much more of like a holy relic that kind of contains all the secrets to Glenn's empire, and without it, the empire would crumble. So actually, Glenn made the mistake of providing me with the responsibility of giving him Binky on the day of 828, and he said, John, no matter what, make sure I do not leave the hotel without this.
Best laid plans. Just moments before the beginning of the 828 rally, Binky and John were nowhere to be found. More on that later. Next, it's off to the Kennedy Center for final preparations for tonight's Divine Destiny event.
It's God. It's the anointing that's on you. It's Jesus. Ooh.
At 5 p.m., with a handful of leftover tickets for the Kennedy Center event in hand, Glenn returns to the Lincoln Memorial and experiences an encounter with a father and son that will provide one of the most poignant and lasting images of the entire week.
The best photography was when Rich gave Glenn 100 tickets and asked him to sign them for the Kennedy Center about 2 hours before the event. And Rich said, if you sign these, we're going to go over and give them out. And Glenn said, well, why don't I go over and give them out? Went up to several groups, gave a small little talk, said a little prayer, and gave out these tickets. And there was one in particular where there was a father and son, and the father just had this look in his eyes and was holding his son. It was so beautiful. And I went up to Glenn, I said, give this guy some tickets. He gave it. And the father had this look that they had something just incredible had just happened.
guys have really, you have really, truly inspired me and inspired my family. You do!
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. So we're going to see Glenn Beck's event at the Kennedy Center on Friday. I feel pretty fortunate to be here.
Unbelievable. People are just, they're good.
A second.
Yeah.
Now let us tonight do your will in your way, that all of the nation may rejoice that they have seen the light of God's love and demonstration in Washington, D.C. on this night and tomorrow at the Lincoln Memorial. In your precious name we pray and ask it. Amen.
Amen. Moments before the America's Divine Destiny event was to begin, just 15 hours before the kickoff of the 828 rally, new problems have started to surface.
Friday night, I met with Joe Kerry and I told him that we've got some serious issues here.
Issues ranging from missing video, missing equipment, missing performers, and the rumored cancellation of two very special surprise guests.
If it happens, I will come out and say, due to pressure, there are people standing on the stage who have risked their lives to be here. And due to political pressure, the Hope Award is still going to be presented to Albert Pujols, and I will tell you why. And I will present it. And because of pressure, security risks, he is not able to accept this here. But we are proud to present it to a man who tries to live his life with honor and integrity.
I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, we'll just take the higher road.
In spite of the pressure to do otherwise, both Albert Pujols and Tony La Russa did show up just as they had promised the next day. Meanwhile, America's Divine Destiny was about to get underway without the benefit of a rehearsal or a script.
How are you? Thank you. Please.
Hey, what do you think about that? Crazy.
Sit down. Thank you. So this is what it is like to be on the stage at the Kennedy Center.
And it went off without a hitch, treating the 2,000 in attendance and the more than 25,000 watching online to one of the most eclectic and spontaneous spiritual events ever put together.
Honestly, it was my favorite part of the weekend.
Well, it was a huge success. It was really fun because people that came out were really high energy, and it again is the mom and pop America stuff because it was a faith event.
I love the music and the spirit that was pouring out of that place. I mean, the Kennedy Center will never be the same.
I stood out there and they were talking to me about, what the day was going to be like, security concerns, and I just remember being so tired, just barely even hearing them. But I was so excited from what I had just experienced at the Kennedy Center, and I couldn't imagine. And one of the security guys came in the hallway and he said, we just got back from the mall. He said, there are people already there. He said, this thing is going to be enormous.
Last night was amazing. I mean, it was amazing. And if that happens, which I just heard, I got up this morning and I saw a report on NBC News, and people were there last night, and they said at 5 a.m. the reflecting pool was half full.
Finally here. Welcome to DC, the town you own.
We surround Rochester. Welcome to DC.
Good to see you.
Good.
Yes.
Yes,
I think the best we can, if we keep them around that line, we're good.
Right on. Good. Good.
How do you look like you're always so rested?
You do too.
Oh, this is going to be an amazing experience.
Yes. It is. It is. I'm so
Amazing,
excited.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about 6:30 in the morning now. So it's a little bit more busy. We heard from Nelson. When he went around the corner, he was giggling because of how many people he saw.
Straight down 17th Street to the World War II Memorial.
We were at a morning breakfast, and during that breakfast, Glenn was speaking.
When I first put this on, I really thought it was going to be a political thing. I really did.
And security came up to me and said, "Joe, we've just received confirmation from the security team at the Lincoln Memorial that the crowd is now past the reflecting pool." And this was 7:30-ish in the morning. And I couldn't believe it. I remember turning back to Spencer and saying, "Can you confirm that before I take it to Glenn?"
Good to see the smiles even this early after bus rides.
We woke up pretty darn early, about 5 o'clock in the morning, which is, anybody that knows me knows I am not a morning person. I would only do this for Glenn.
When Glenn did the first We Surround event, to take my son and really feel like we're doing something for the next generation, not just for myself, that was striking, and this feels like a bookend now.
I've met people from all over the nation already. New York, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Texas.
North Carolina. My
Michigan,
sister's Chicago.
Louisiana.
From Chicago.
Massachusetts.
An Arizonan here from the Southwest.
You know, Spencer spoken to his radio, confirmed that at 7:30 in the morning, the crowd was past the reflecting pool towards that World War II memorial. And I remember getting back up on that breakfast stage and whispering into Glenn's ear. And he looked at me just the same way I had looked at security. "Are you sure?" And what a feeling that was. What a feeling it was to hear that and then to see it.
Joe just told me that security alerted us that we should all go soon because it has just been reported by security that the Lincoln Memorial, the reflecting pool, is already full.
We found a spot, made it down to the right beside the World War II Memorial. See that speck down there? We're here at 8 a.m. This is the closest we can get.
As downtown Washington became a sea of people headed to the rally, the Mercury crew finds itself confronted with a whole new list of problems and concerns.
There was a moment on Saturday morning where I got a call. I was over at the hotel, and I got a call from Liz, and she was running the 828 event. And she said, "I need help."
You get to a point where you haven't slept and you're exhausted, you're meeting after meeting, you're talking to different people.
So I went down to the breakfast, and I just looked at some of the Mercury people who were wearing these bright yellow t-shirts, you couldn't miss them. And I just pointed to them and I said, you, and you, follow me.
We're at the breakfast, Glenn and Sarah are about to start speaking, and Rich comes running down the hotel stairs with a look of sheer panic on his face.
And they were like, "I'm working on the breakfast." And I'm like, "Not anymore, you're not."
He says, "You need to get to the Lincoln Memorial now. We're having a video crisis." A video crisis is not what you want before the biggest event of your life. So I hop in a car, drive over to Lincoln Memorial. It was probably a 5-minute ride, but it felt like an hour and a half. I get to the broadcast truck, I swing the door open, and there's 4 guys jammed into a room the size of a closet with video monitors and videotapes all over the place. It was a little chaotic. I was told, "We have too much video for the show. We have to change the program. Something has to be cut out."
At one point, the production crew considers an 11th-hour program change, the elimination of several planned elements to remedy the crisis.
Luckily, cooler heads prevailed and we were able to make it all work. I know I didn't want to be the one to tell Glenn we had to change the show.
You're making decisions on the fly, and you just are like, I don't even know if this is the right decision, but it's all I can make right now. And so, of course, you have those fears in the back of your head, like, was it really good to add the extra porta potties? What if we don't need them? What if no one comes?
Things are just starting to kick off, and there are thousands upon thousands who are just line the reflecting pool out here to the Lincoln Memorial, all the way to the World War II Memorial, about 500 yards away, about 5 football field lengths.
The extra porta potties proved a wise decision.
Where'd you folks all come in from?
Indiana.
Texas.
Florida.
California.
San Francisco.
Pennsylvania. Connecticut.
From Las Vegas, Nevada.
Did you drive, fly?
I drove.
You drove.
Yep.
How long did it take you to get here?
Just under 40 hours.
What made you want to drive 40 hours to get?
What made me not want to? You just have to come. You got to. You have to participate. You got to stand up.
I'm deeply moved by Glenn's message, the passion. It's overwhelming, and I had to be a part of it.
We came down yesterday, part of a coalition of people, different firefighters, first responders, just to participate in this event.
I'm from Arizona. And so we did. We brought in 2 buses, 100 people.
I just got in this morning. We rode all night from South Carolina. We got in this morning, and I'm just thrilled to death to be a part of all of this.
When we started pulling up in the car.
We're coming in from near Rochester, New York. We had 3 buses of people, like about 180 people, and drove through the night.
There was more people than I've ever seen going to anything.
We're from Ramsey, Minnesota. How did you get here, first of all? Fly, drive? We flew. Did you come with a group or by yourself? We came by ourselves and sat next to a woman who was coming as well.
We came down by bus. We have 2 buses from Westlake, Ohio. And there's a total of 57 buses from Ohio in general.
And then we pulled down the side road, and I remember looking over, and you could just see through the trees. You could just see it didn't look like there was any gaps between the people.
I'm from La Salva Beach, California, and I've driven to this event today on my 3-wheel motorcycle all the way. It took me 6 days to get here, but it was something I had to do. Had to be here.
It was at that point where it kind of went from excitement to, what is this? This really is a historic event.
It was coming together. And it was part overwhelming, it was part exciting, it was part terrifying to look out and just see massive amounts of people just gathering for an event that, you know, you helped organize. It was everything all at once. Like any emotion you could think of, it was there.
I just started tears pouring down my face. It was an amazing moment, and someone in the audience, they saw me and they were like, Natasha, don't cry. And I was like, I couldn't believe that I was sharing this moment with someone that I didn't even know. But at the same time, we had a common bond because we knew, why we were there.
It was truly, it was one of the most, I think it was the most incredible professional experience of my life.
With a little over an hour before the event kickoff at 10, Glenn ventures out of his nearby green room tent to sneak his first peek of the gathering crowd.
This is something. Let's just go.
Back in the tent, he shares a table with Sarah Palin and creates the bullet point notes that will become the last 3 pages of his speech.
Be with me on stage.
Outside, the flow of people onto the mall continues unabated. There is a palpable sense of anticipation.
There was no sleep. It was just jubilance coming on the bus. There was excitement. There was this feeling of re-energy that was starting, even on the bus.
Back in the tent, less than 1 hour before the start of the rally, an unexpected few moments of sheer panic. Binky and its handler, intern John Miller, still nowhere to be found.
He said, John, no matter what, make sure I do not leave the hotel without this. And of course, after the breakfast event that happened at the hotel prior to the rally, he left and I had Binky. So I found myself in a cab just chasing after Glenn, which is impossible when there's hundreds of thousands of people all flocking to the Lincoln Memorial. So I had no idea what to do.
A number of staffers are dispatched to find John, which, as you can imagine, was the proverbial hunt for a needle in a very large haystack.
I'm sweating, I'm running, so I hop out of the cab and I'm hurtling through the crowd and knocking people over like a crazy person. But eventually I ended up getting it to him, and all worked out, so.
With Binky safely in hand, Glenn continues putting the finishing touches in what figures to be the biggest speech of his life. Meantime, the media is still trying to figure out exactly what's about to happen.
We have plenty of people, as you mentioned, set to speak. You have Sarah Palin today about 10:40. Michelle Bachmann, congresswoman from Minnesota, the Republican, also set to speak, a Tea Party favorite, as well as Dick Armey, also expected a little later today.
Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann and Dick Armey were never scheduled to be part of the program. In politics or political speak, either within or between the lines had been forbidden. Those that had chosen to be part of the day had a much clearer understanding of the event's purpose.
To help restore America.
I wanted to be with like-minded people. We're all concerned about the future of this country.
I am telling you now with everything in me, in 20 years from now, someone will be 28. And they will say, I remember my parents took me as a kid. And I remember that moment. And I remember that's when I decided that I was going to live my life in a different way. If your children are with you at the Lincoln Memorial this Saturday, I can tell you that America will be fine 25, 30, 35 years from now. We must grow our own George Washingtons. We must grow a new Abraham Lincoln.
When Glenn said that there was going to be a 9-year-old in the audience today, and that it would touch their heart, and that might be the child one day that grows up and does what needs to be done to save this country. I thought about my 9-year-old, and I knew he had to be here.
A scan of the massive crowd confirms that it's filled with sons, daughters, moms, dads, grandparents, families of all shapes and sizes. A reality in stark contrast to the predictions and characterizations offered by some in the media in the days leading up to the event.
This rally isn't about hope and change and a better America. This is all about harassment and intimidation. The Tea Party is old, white, desperate, out of touch, and evidently just scared of black folks in this country.
Who believes that it's not political?
Besides himself, I don't know anybody who does, and I think it's just a talking point to, of course, get us to buy into the nonsense that he's selling.
I don't go to political rallies, never have. I do not believe this is a political rally. I sense a spirit here, a spirit of like-minded people. This is my future. And I want to show my family, my sons, that America is worth saving. America is honorable. Something amazing is going to happen, and I wanted us to be a part of that.
Right on cue at approximately 9:59 a.m., a magical moment provided by Mother Nature.
He brings you the truth every day. Now, he brings you an effort to restore honor in America. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Beck.
Hello, America! I have just gotten word from the media that there is over 1,000 people here today. We are humbled that you are here. We are truly humbled. This really is, build it and they will come. The reflecting pool holds about 200,000 people. This field back here holds about 250 to 300,000 people. They are not only full here, they're full in that field,
They're full behind me, and they are now across the street approaching the Washington Monument.
The people are just phenomenal.
It's the sacrifice that people have made. It just feels so family oriented. I mean, I've met some of the nicest people from Ohio to California to Washington. It's so fulfilling. It is deeply overwhelming.
Because this is not political today. This is not a political rally. We're not bringing signs. We're coming together once again to see that we're not alone, but then to take the first steps back to restoring the principles and values that made this country great.
People are the answer. The people are that's the key. That's the key.
Something beyond imagination is happening. Something that is beyond man is happening. America today begins to turn back to God.
Amen. We need a great revival in the United States of America, and this may be the start of it.
They totally changed the paradigm. What is going to be remembered is Abraham Lincoln. His Gettysburg Address is alive today. It speaks from the past. The world will little remember or note the words that we said there. It's what they did. It's the people.
The most exciting thing we have experienced. It is wonderful.
I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines. I want to be counted. I want to show up. If it's just me and 3 other people, I want to be there.
There was an awakening before the American Revolution, led to the Enlightenment and then the Revolution. There was a great awakening before the Civil War, and I think this is an awakening.
For too long, this country has wandered in darkness, and we have wandered in darkness in periods from the beginning. We have had moments of brilliance and moments of darkness.
There's always been that spirituality, you know, from the Revolution, to Civil War, civil rights, and now here.
I want them to know that there are this many other people in the country that love this country and know the principles that it was founded on.
To restore honor, you first have to recognize, remember, shine a bright light on those men and women whose actions define the meaning of the word, whose lives set the example for others to follow.
When my son said to me about a year ago, we were reading the story of David and Goliath, and he was sitting on my lap, and I said, "Wow, what a hero he is." He said, "No, he's not, Dad." My son is 5. I said, "How come he's not a hero?" He looked at me totally puzzled, and he said, "Well, because he can't fly or wear a cape." That's when I realized we have lost too many heroes in this nation. Heroes are just people who stand and do the right thing. Usually, at their own peril, they'll stand and do the right thing.
Restoring honor is very close to my heart, and it's close to what I want for my children and for my family. I want them to grow up with the same sense of honor and awareness of the sacrifices that were made by previous generations of Americans. The way that I did growing up with my grandfather was a World War II veteran. My dad was in the service during the Vietnam era.
Now, I've been asked to speak today not as a politician, no, something more, something much more. I've been asked to speak as the mother of a soldier. We honor those who serve something greater than self and made the ultimate sacrifice, as well as those who served and did come home forever changed by the battlefield. So with pride in the red, white, and blue, with gratitude to our men and women in uniform, let's stand together, let's stand with honor, let's restore America.
Our troops take bullets in our name. They do things for us in our name, and we give them the Purple Heart. But the original intent on the Purple Heart from George Washington, it was called the Badge of Merit. It was the first merit badge, and it was given to any soldier that had done something of merit, had done something of honor, because George Washington knew to be able to defeat the most powerful navy and army on earth, he had to have farmers and shopkeepers of honor and merit. Today, we begin to award the new Badge of Merit.
But this time, we're here to honor Pastor C.L. Jackson.
Introduce you to an example of excellence, our Hope Award winner this year, Albert Pujols.
The honoree for the Badge of Merit for charity is Mr. John Huntsman Sr. from Salt Lake City, Utah. But to receive the award on his behalf is Emma Houston.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce to you someone that I met just recently in the last 6 months and has become a good friend. A woman whose past, her family's past, has been washed in blood. Her father and her uncle were both killed for standing for what is right. A woman who is at risk for standing today, for saying what she believes. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Alveda King.
Before she went out on stage, she was so nervous.
When it was time to go out and the footage began to play about my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King, Glenn said, let's pray. And of course we did pray, and we prayed together. And we could just know, you could almost hear the drum rolls inside your heart, knowing the drum major for justice that my uncle talked about. So we could feel that. So rather than being nervous, I was anticipatory. I knew something really was going to happen.
I started walking away. I wished her luck, and I started walking away, and I turned around, and she said, Glenn Beck? And I turned around and I said, yes, Dr. King. And she said, next time you tell me something big is happening and there's miracles happening, next time I'm going to believe you.
Today we are here to honor special men and women who, like my Uncle Martin, are blessed with servants' hearts. Though they gave their service in ways very different from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., like him, they are people who are not afraid to give their lives for the freedom of others. If Uncle Martin could be here today, he would surely commend us for giving honor where honor is due. I have a dream that America will pray and God will forgive us our sins and revive us our land. Yes. On that day, we will all be able to lift every voice and sing of the love and honor that God desires for all his children. God bless America, and let us march on together until victory is won.
This day is a day that we can start the heart of America again, and it has nothing to do with politics.
The speech preparation was a year of reading, and I read everything I could.
It has everything to do with God. Everything, turning our face back to the values and the principles that made us great.
I was walking in Arlington Cemetery. I don't know, when was it, the Tuesday? And I was having a conversation with somebody, and I said, I feel very irresponsible. He said, why? And I said, because I haven't written a word. And I said, I'm hoping I'm counting on that the Spirit is just going to move on me, and I will just know. And I don't want to overthink it. I want it just to come from me.
We are gathered here today in a hallowed spot. Here, Abraham Lincoln, a giant of an American, casting a shadow on all of us. We look to a giant for answers. Behind you, in front of me, the Washington Monument. Alone, tall, straight. If you look at the Washington Monument, you might notice its scars. But nobody talks about that. Nobody says, look to it now. Nobody says, yeah, I don't know, but a quarter of the way up it changes color. They stopped building it in the Civil War. And when the war was over, they began again. No one sees the scars of the Washington Memorial, the Washington Monument. We see what it stands for.
I was on the stage, and it's a very bizarre thing that I don't know how many people can relate to. Hearing your own words slam into the face of the Washington Monument and come back to you. There was a point, wasn't very far into my speech, that I felt as those words were being printed and thrown back. It was almost like history, and I could feel that this was important.
America is at a crossroads, and there is a clear and simple choice. Do we choose to just look at the scars? Do we choose to look back? Or do we do what every great generation has done in America in times of trouble? Look ahead. Dream about what we are going to become, not worried about what we are. Look forward. Look west. Look to the heavens. Look to God and make your choice. We have a choice to make today. Do we, Americans that live today, surrounded by giants who gave it all, do we today say the experiment cannot work? Man must be ruled by someone. It does not end here. It shall not end now. It shall not end in my generation, in your generation. It is up to us.
By all accounts, there was not a single arrest or incidents of violence, and the mall was left cleaner than it was found. In addition to those in Washington, D.C., 200,000 people watched on Facebook, and thousands of others tuned into C-SPAN's live coverage, and still more listened on the radio. To date, nearly $6 million has been raised for the event co-sponsored, the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, and donations continue to pour in.
How you feel, Glenn?
I don't know yet. Is it all right?
I had a nightmare on the Sunday, going into Monday. I don't think I moved on the Saturday night. I just went to sleep. But on Sunday, I had nightmares all night. I got very little sleep because I wondered if I had done my job. I wondered if I had said enough. If I had chosen the right words. I had surely said far too many words. Lincoln knew economy of words. Did I say the right ones? Did I warn the people enough? Did I make it clear on, did I do my job? And I woke up in the morning and my wife came into the bathroom and I was standing over the sink and I was, I mean, not a surprise for me, but I was crying and she said, what is wrong? And I said, I just don't know if I was clear enough because I know I'll never get the opportunity back. There was one thing that I regret not saying because it would have been the memorable line in it. It would be a very famous line. And it would have forced the press to publish something that would have made people ask questions and say, well, what does he mean by that? But they would have made it into politics. And I had it, and it was the last line. And I chose not to say it because I didn't want any politics in it, even though I knew it was the I have a dream line. And it was, we are 40 days and 40 nights away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. And I've wrestled with that because I know it would have been a great line. I know it would have been, everybody would have remembered it. And it would have forced the media to write it, but I think it would have diminished it.
Out of all the things that I saw and all the things that I did and all of the thousands of photos that we have gone through, for me, the lasting, the iconic image of 828 is this picture of Addison. And I know George talked a little bit about it, but what George doesn't know is the whole story behind it. He knows he saw them and said, Glenn, you've got to give a couple of tickets to this father and son, which I did. But he doesn't remember that Addison and his dad were at an impromptu prayer session in the morning. He took another photo, and you can't see Addison and his dad in this photo, but I remembered seeing them in the morning. And so when I gave him the tickets, there was a special connection. And maybe it's because I remember feeling like Addison when he was about his age, just excited to be there. And now I kind of feel like Addison's dad, where I know what's happening, and I know what this means, and I know that Addison's dad brought his son there because I had asked him. And I had said, somewhere in the crowd, there's going to be an 8-year-old boy. Addison happens to be 9. And this will be a turning point in his life. And years down the road, maybe he will be the guy that we build the next great monument to. And I can see that in his eyes. He knows what this moment could mean. Afterwards, a couple of weeks after the event, I wrote to Addison and I told him the responsibility that's on his shoulders. And I told him I'm going to be contacting him in about 15 years and find out what he did with this possible pivot point. What did he do with this opportunity? Hopefully, something big.
Now, it exceeded every expectation in my mind.
I had no idea going into this. You know, Glenn kept saying, oh, it'll be a history-making event. All right, sure. But then to stand on that stage and see that day and everything he had said leading up to that moment actually resonating, like, no, we could change history. We could have an impact. It's pretty powerful.
How hungry the American people are. You have an event that draws 500,000 people, and Glenn never explains really what's going to happen other than we are going to restore honor.
240 years ago, there was what was called the Black Robe Regiment. England hated the preachers. In fact, if you were a preacher, you were most likely to be killed during the American Revolution. Why? Because it was first the preacher that said all men are created equal, that rights come from God, no government, no king.
And when he talked about bringing that group of 240 or 250 religious leaders out on stage,
the Black Robe Regiment is back again today. These 240 men and women of all faiths are standing here today. America, it is time to start the heart of this nation again and put it where it belongs, our heart with God. These 240 men and women from all faith represent thousands of clergy that we couldn't fit into this area that are amongst you now. Thousands that have come here to the mall to stand with America and God. And those thousands that are here represent 180 million people.
What a powerful moment that was. What a powerful moment.
These people understand America. They love it. They love it. They want to live where we live in harmony and peace and we like each other and we have a good time and we take care of each other. They want to. They truly were the people that George Washington would have given a badge of merit to.
Took a couple calls the day after the event. One woman who said she lost her wallet and panicked, of course. You're sitting out in the mall, you're in an unfamiliar city, you lose your wallet. And she has someone just step up and say, here, take this, you need it more than I do. She figures it's going to be $20 or $40. And of course, she tries to turn it down at first, but then, she's like, thank you so much, I'll get it back to you any way I can. She looks down, it's $400, and I mean, that's incredible. And she goes home, the first thing that she does when she gets home is gets the guy's address and sends him back the $400 immediately. There's two people acting completely selflessly. And then she gets a call from someone else at the rally who found the wallet, returned it to police, and didn't take a dime out of it. Now, where do you find a group of people like that?
That's such a tremendous story, because police didn't even have, she had a hard time getting the wallet back because police don't even have a method to return cash to people because it's never there when they recover the wallet.
The real star, the real story, were the people that were gathered at the mall. And that's the real story of 828 that nobody tells.
It
it was an absolutely, completely amazing event that I cried through half of it because it touched me so. It was just absolutely incredible. I would not have missed it for the world, and it has changed my life.
It was everything we expected it to be and more. It wasn't a political rally.
I had a great day. I had a wonderful time. I hope, if nothing else, that this event gave you the opportunity, as it did me, to think strongly about my faith and to reconnect with one who made me. It was a great time.
I think this is a big reminder, that we're all one big family.
The word's going to come out of my mouth, awesome. I mean, it was just absolutely awesome.
But it was footsteps you could hear, footsteps towards the next direction that we're taking in America, footsteps back to our founding principles, back to our values, and that's where we're going, and that's what you can hear today. Thank you. It was a great weekend.